In this problem, we're going to be converting from polar coordinates to rectangular coordinates. So let's go ahead and look at part A. We're given the point 6 pi over 6. So this is the same thing as 6 and 30 degrees for our angle measure. So we have an R value and we have a theta. So let's go ahead to our polar grid and let's plot this point. Right, remember that we're going to plot our angle first. So we're coming up to our 30 degree mark. And we need to count out a total of 6 radii length so that we can plot our point. So our point, I'm going to go ahead and label it with an A for right now since we're doing part A. It's going to be out here, right on our most outside circle. That's 6 units out, and an angle measure of 30 degrees. So this point actually represents a point that is currently in quadrant 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and convert this to rectangular coordinates. Remember that your rectangular coordinates are the ones where you have the x and the y value. Right? Polar is where you have the r and the theta. So let's go ahead and get our equations first. Remember that x is equal to r times cosine of theta, and our y value is equal to r times sine of theta. And let's go ahead and plug in what we have. I'm going to work in degrees for right now. So our r value is 6, and we have cosine of 30 degrees. And for our y value, we're going to have 6 times sine of 30 degrees. Right? And let's go ahead and work with our y value first. Sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. So we have 6 times 1/2, or a y value of 3. And if we do the x value here, we're going to get 6 cosine of 30 degrees is going to be radical 3 over 2. And if we go ahead and multiply these together, this is going to give us 3 radical 3. Now, because I want to eventually plot these on my grid, I'm going to go ahead and take this out to a decimal. So this is about 5.2. So when I go to plot my point, as an exact value, I have 3 radical 3, comma 3. This is my xy point that I'm going to be plotting, right? So this is roughly the same thing as the point about 5.2, and then up 3 units. So when we come over to our grid, a little more than 5 units along our x-axis and up a total of 3 units. So our point for part A in the rectangular coordinate system is going to be right here. Now, if these were drawn on the same scale, my polar grid and my rectangular grid, they should be in the exact same location, but you'll notice that the point that you're working with here is a point that was plotted in quadrant 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at part B. In this one, we have the point -4 and negative pi over 4. So this is the same thing as -4 and negative 45 degrees. Right, so we have a negative radii value, and our angle measure here is -45. So let's go ahead and plot our point first. Keep in mind we're going to be coming down 45 degrees, so we're going to end up at this 315 degree mark. Right, and I want to come out a total of 4 radii lengths. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, keep in mind that R value is negative, so I want to stay along that same radial line, but I need to come in the opposite direction, right? Because it was negative. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And this is where I'm going to plot point B. So keep in mind that this is a quadrant 2 point. Right, so after we convert this to rectangular coordinates, this point should also lie in quadrant 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our conversions. Let's get our formulas first. We've got x equals r cosine of theta, and y equals r sine of theta. And let's go ahead and plug in what we have. So for our x value here, we've got negative 4 times cosine of negative 45 degrees. And for the y value, we've got negative 4 times sine of negative 45 degrees. Cosine of negative 45 degrees is going to give us radical 2 over 2. And sine of negative 45 degrees is going to give us a negative radical 2 over 2. So let's go ahead and simplify each of these pieces. We're going to get an x value here. We can reduce this to a negative 2 radical 2. And a y value here is going to be positive 2 radical 2. So our xy coordinates as exact values are going to be negative 2 radical 2 and positive 2 radical 2. Because we're going to be plotting this on the grid, I'm going to go ahead and take these out to some decimals. And I'll just go to 1 decimal place here. So we're going to get a negative 2.8 and a positive 2.8 as the point we want to go plot. Right, so if I come over about negative 2.8 units and come up a little bit less than 3 units here, you'll see that point B is going to be right about here. And you'll notice that this point, once we've plotted it, is a point that is in quadrant 2. And it should be, based upon the radii value and the angle measure that we were given at the beginning part of the problem.